The first time Karen screamed at me, it was over a fence. Not my fence, not even her fence. A fence that technically wasn't even inside her precious HOA boundary. But that didn't stop her. "You can't just block community access," she shrieked from the other side of my temporary cattle panels, waving a binder thick enough to stop a bullet. "This neighborhood has rights." That was the moment I realized something important. Karen didn't care about rules. She cared about control. And she had no idea what I had just bought. Let me rewind. I had lived on the outer edge of Willow Creek Estates for 6 years. Willow Creek was one of those quiet country luxury communities. Big houses, manicured lawns, decorative barns people never actually used. And Karen? Karen was the HOA president, self-appointed queen. She enforced mailbox height with a measuring tape. She once fined a retired veteran because his American flag wasn't approved seasonal decor. She sent violation notices over grass shade differences. People didn't challenge her. Because inside the HOA, she had power. But here's the thing no one noticed. My property sat at the very last lot, and beyond my backyard fence, open land, untouched, unused. 58 acres of rolling pasture and wooded hillside that technically sat outside HOA jurisdiction. For years, Karen had treated it like community overflow space. Teenagers rode ATVs there. Neighbors walked dogs through it. Karen even told new buyers, "That land will likely be annexed into the HOA one day." She said it so confidently that people believed her. There was just one problem. The land wasn't hers. It wasn't the HOA's, and it wasn't annexed. It belonged to an elderly rancher who had never signed a single HOA document in his life. And when he decided to sell, I bought it. All 58 acres, in cash. The closing took 3 weeks. I didn't tell anyone, not even my closest neighbor, because I knew something Karen didn't. She assumed control, but she never checked paperwork. The morning after closing, I hired a surveyor. Bright orange stakes appeared along the property line. Then came the posts. Then came the steel gate. Not decorative, not symbolic. A 12-foot ranch gate with a commercial lock and keypad entry. Facing the dirt trail everyone had been using for years. The trail Karen called community access. It was never community access. It was tolerated trespassing. And tolerance ended at 7:30 a.m. on Tuesday. Karen showed up before noon, white SUV, HOA logo on the side, binder in hand. She didn't even greet me. "You need to remove this immediately," she snapped, pointing at the gate. I leaned against the post, calm. "Remove what?" "This obstruction." "Obstruction to what?" "To community land." I smiled. "It's not community land." Her face twitched. "It absolutely is. The HOA has used it for years." "Used," I said carefully, "doesn't equal owned." She flipped through her binder aggressively. "Willow Creek Master Plan includes future expansion." "Future," I repeated, "not present." She stepped closer to the gate and rattled it. "You can't just lock this." "I can," I said, "because I bought it." The silence that followed? Beautiful. She blinked twice. "You bought what?" "All 58 acres. Her mouth opened slightly. "That land wasn't for sale." "It was. You didn't have board approval." "I didn't need it." That's when she lost composure for the first time. "You live in this community. You answer to the HOA." "Inside the boundary," I corrected. "This land sits outside it." She laughed, sharp, disbelieving. "You can't just cut off access." "Watch me." I closed the lock with a loud metallic click. That sound echoed farther than the gate. By evening, the neighborhood Facebook group was on fire. "Why is the back trail blocked? Is this temporary?" Karen said we're handling it. Karen posted a long paragraph claiming the HOA was reviewing unauthorized modifications. Unauthorized. To my land. Outside her jurisdiction. She was scrambling. And I knew why. Because that land wasn't just pasture. It was the illusion of control. For years, she'd acted like it belonged to her kingdom. Now, there was a gate, and gates change power dynamics. The real meltdown happened 2 days later. She showed up with a sheriff's deputy. I nearly laughed. The deputy walked up politely. "Sir, we received a complaint about restricted access to shared land." I handed him the deed, the survey, the county parcel map. He studied them carefully, then turned to Karen. "Ma'am, this property is privately owned." Her voice rose instantly. "But it's always been community use." The deputy shrugged. "That doesn't establish legal right," she pointed at me. "He's violating HOA agreements." The deputy looked back at me. "Is this parcel part of the HOA?" "No, sir." He checked the map again. "No, it's not." He tipped his hat and walked away. Karen stood there shaking. "You think this is funny?" "No," I said calmly. "I think this is finished." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "You just made an enemy." I shook my head. "No, I removed an illusion." And that's when I realized something else. Karen wasn't mad about access. She was mad she couldn't expand her authority, because the 58 acres represented something dangerous, freedom. But I wasn't done. Buying the land was step 1. The gate? Step 2. Step 3 would end her reign permanently, and she still had no idea what was coming. Karen didn't wait. She escalated. 3 days after the sheriff incident, I received a certified letter, not from the county, not from a lawyer, from the Willow Creek HOA. Subject line: Notice of violation. Unauthorized obstruction impacting community property values. I laughed out loud. They couldn't control the land, so they tried to reframe it. The letter claimed my gate negatively impacted neighborhood access and aesthetic continuity. Aesthetic continuity. On land they didn't own. That's when I realized Karen wasn't going to back down quietly. She was going to try something bigger. 2 nights later, she called an emergency HOA meeting. Attendance was strongly encouraged. Translation? Mandatory pressure session. I showed up, not because I had to, but because I wanted to watch. The clubhouse was packed. About 40 homeowners, whispering, curious. Karen stood at the front, binder in hand, posture rigid. She didn't look confident. She looked desperate. "As many of you know," she began, "a private individual has restricted access to land historically used by our community." Private individual, not even saying my name. She clicked a slide onto the projector, a photo of my locked gate. "Families walked here. Children played here. We had future development plans." Future. Still future. She continued, "This obstruction may reduce property values." That was her weapon. Fear. Property value fear works like gasoline in HOA politics. A man in the back raised his hand. "Did the HOA ever own that land?" Karen paused. "It was understood." He interrupted. "Owned?" Silence. Another voice spoke up. "Was there an easement?" Karen flipped pages quickly. "We are reviewing historical access rights." Translation: "No." Then she shifted tone. "We may pursue legal action." Now she looked at me directly. I raised my hand. "Yes?" she snapped. "Can you show the deed where the HOA owns it?" Murmurs. She didn't answer. I stood. "For years, that land belonged to Mr. Carter. He allowed access. That was kindness, not contract. I purchased it legally. The parcel is outside HOA boundaries. There is no easement recorded. I checked." More murmurs. One woman whispered loudly, "So, we were just using it?" "Yes," I said calmly. "With permission." That permission ended when ownership changed. Karen slammed her binder shut. "This is exactly the kind of selfish behavior that destroys community spirit." There it was. Not legal, emotional. When people in power lose legal footing, they switch to morality arguments. 3 days later, a second certified letter arrived. This one was bold. Fine assessment, architectural inconsistency, and commercial grade structure. She couldn't control the acreage, so she attacked the gate. According to the HOA, the gate was visible from community view corridors and inconsistent with neighborhood character. This was creative. The gate technically sat beyond HOA boundary, but part of it was visible from my backyard, and my backyard was inside the HOA, so she tried to claim visual jurisdiction. I almost admired the attempt. Almost. I responded in writing. Short. Precise. The gate structure exists entirely outside HOA property lines. Attached, certified survey. No architectural approval required for structures beyond boundary. 2 days later, another fine. $200 per day. Now we were in escalation mode. Here's what Karen didn't expect. People were watching. The Facebook group started changing tone. Is this really enforceable? Why are we spending HOA funds on land we don't own? Didn't dues just increase? That last one hit hardest because 2 months earlier, Karen had pushed through a dues increase citing future expansion maintenance. Expansion. Of what? Now homeowners were connecting dots. The land she implied might join the HOA? Gone? Locked? Out of reach? Then she made a mistake. She sent a neighborhood-wide email. The HOA board is exploring annexation options regarding adjacent parcels to preserve long-term property value. Annexation. Of land I already owned, without my consent, legally impossible. But most homeowners don't understand annexation law. They just hear board action. So I did something strategic. I hired a land use attorney, not to sue, to send one letter, clear, professional, direct. It stated, the 58-acre parcel is outside HOA jurisdiction. No annexation may occur without owner consent. Any attempt to interfere with lawful use will result in legal response. The letter was sent certified to every board member, not just Karen. Transparency is a weapon. Karen escalated again. Violation notice 4, fence staining color deviation, trash bin visible 15 minutes early. Unapproved exterior landscaping modification. The landscaping modification? Survey markers, orange flags. She claimed they were visual disturbances. That's when I knew. She wasn't protecting the community. She was trying to exhaust me. Classic HOA attrition strategy. Overwhelm the homeowner. Force compliance through fatigue. But I wasn't tired. I was patient. And patience wins long games. One Saturday morning, I woke up to chainsaws. I walked toward the gate. 3 teenage boys from the neighborhood were attempting to cut through a section of fencing along the tree line. Not the main gate, a side section. They froze when they saw me. Karen said this is community land, one of them muttered. That did it. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I called the sheriff. Trespassing, property damage attempt. Parents were furious. But the deputy was clear. It's private property. That incident spread fast. Now it wasn't just about a gate. It was about misinformation. Karen had told people, including minors, that they had rights to land they didn't. That's liability territory. And board members hate liability. 3 days later, one board member knocked on my door. Not Karen, Mark, treasurer. He looked uncomfortable. Off the record, he said, Karen never verified ownership. She assumed the land would eventually be donated or absorbed. Assumed, I repeated. He sighed. She's pushing annexation talk to save face. There is no annexation without my signature. I know. He hesitated. People are starting to question spending. Legal consult fees are rising. Ah, money. The real pressure point. HOA members tolerate drama. They don't tolerate rising dues, especially when it's tied to losing battles. The strategy that changed everything that night, I made the move that would permanently end her reign. I applied for an agricultural exemption, legally registered the 58 acres as protected farmland, which meant lower property tax, zoning stability, stronger legal insulation, and zero chance of residential annexation. Then I installed something small, but symbolic. A sign near the gate. Private agricultural land, no trespassing protected by county code. It wasn't aggressive, it was factual, and facts dismantle fantasies. Karen drove by that sign the next morning. She stopped, sat in her SUV for nearly 2 minutes, just staring. That was the first time I saw it. Not anger, not arrogance, fear, because she understood something now. The land wasn't temporary. The gate wasn't temporary. And her expansion dream? Dead. But I wasn't finished. Because removing illusion of control is step 1. Removing the person who abused it? That's step 2. And the annual HOA election was only 8 weeks away. The annual HOA election had never mattered before. Most years, maybe 12 people showed up. Karen would stand at the front, read a prepared speech about preserving standards, and get re-elected by default because no one wanted the headache. But this year, the room was standing room only, and it wasn't about landscaping anymore. It was about power. 8 weeks passed quickly. During that time, something interesting happened. I stopped responding emotionally. No arguments, no Facebook debates, no hallway confrontations. Every violation notice Karen sent, I replied once, in writing, with documentation. Every rumor, I answered with facts. And slowly, the temperature of the neighborhood shifted. People started asking for numbers. Specifically, why did legal expenses increase 34% this quarter? That question came from Linda, a retired accountant who had never spoken at a meeting before. Karen brushed it off. Necessary enforcement actions. But the seed was planted. And once neighbors start looking at budgets, things get uncomfortable. 2 weeks before the election, Mark, the treasurer who had quietly visited me earlier, resigned. Short email. No explanation. That sent shockwaves. Because when the money person leaves suddenly, people assume one thing: there's a problem. Within 48 hours, homeowners began requesting a financial review. Not a lawsuit, not a rebellion, just transparency. Karen responded defensively. The board operates within its authority. That phrase, within its authority, had become her shield. But authority without trust doesn't survive long. The clubhouse felt different that night. Tense, focused, no casual chatter. Karen stood at the podium, perfectly styled, composed on the surface, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. She began with her usual tone. For years, I have protected this community from declining standards and external threats. External threats. That was me. She continued. Recent actions by individuals seeking to undermine our cohesion have forced the board into defensive measures. Murmurs, not agreement, skepticism. Then nominations opened, and that's when something unexpected happened. Linda stood up. I nominate David. That was me. The room turned. I hadn't planned to run, but the nomination required a simple yes or no. Karen's eyes locked on mine. There was challenge in them, defiance. She expected me to hesitate, to decline. Instead, I stood. I accept. Silence. And in that silence, something shifted permanently. HOA elections usually aren't debates. This one was. A homeowner asked the first direct question. Why did we spend nearly $18,000 on legal consultation regarding land we don't own? Karen stiffened. To protect potential future expansion rights, I responded calmly. There were no expansion rights. The parcel was never part of HOA filings. Another question. Did the board verify ownership before attempting annexation discussions? Karen flipped pages again. We operated under historical usage assumptions. That phrase hurt her more than she realized. Historical usage assumptions? Not legal rights? Assumptions? Then Linda asked the question that sealed it. Did the board instruct residents that the land was community property? Karen hesitated. We believed it to be functionally shared. Functionally shared, not legally shared. And now everyone heard the difference. Ballots were simple. One name or the other. No speeches after that. Just quiet marking of paper. I didn't look at Karen. I didn't need to. The energy in the room told the story. When the ballots were counted, the result wasn't close. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't a landslide humiliation. It was decisive. I won. Karen lost. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She stood slowly, removed her HOA badge, placed it on the table, and said something I'll never forget. "You'll regret this. Not good luck, not congratulations. A warning." Because for her, leadership wasn't service. It was identity, and losing it felt like erasure. She walked out of the clubhouse alone. No applause, no support, just quiet. Winning wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Within 2 weeks, we conducted a formal financial review. Nothing criminal, nothing dramatic, but deeply revealing. Legal consultations related to the 58 acres accounted for nearly all of the dues increase. Annexation research fees, strategic expansion planning, community messaging campaigns. She had spent thousands trying to protect an illusion, and homeowners paid for it. When we presented the breakdown at the next meeting, there wasn't anger. There was disappointment, and disappointment changes culture faster than rage. One evening, about a month later, I stood near the locked ranch gate, sunset across the pasture. Quiet, peaceful, no arguing, no SUVs idling nearby, no binder-waving authority, just land, mine. Behind me, the neighborhood looked the same, but it felt different, because people understood something now. HOAs have limits, power has limits, assumptions have limits, and boundaries, legal ones, matter. Karen put her house on the market 3 months later. No dramatic farewell, no speech, just a listing. She moved quietly, and with her went the culture of fear. The final time I saw her, she was loading boxes into a moving truck. She noticed me watching, walked over, no anger this time, just exhaustion. "You could have left it alone," she said softly. I shook my head. "I didn't start anything. I just locked a gate." She looked toward the pasture. It was easier when people didn't question. There it was. The truth. Control survives on silence. When silence breaks, so does control. She got in her car and drove away. No drama. Just departure. People assume I bought land to keep people out. I didn't. I bought clarity. The gate wasn't about blocking neighbors. It was about defining reality. Once that boundary existed physically, people were forced to confront something uncomfortable. Just because something feels communal doesn't make it owned. Just because someone acts in charge doesn't mean they are. And just because authority has existed for years doesn't mean it's legitimate. The 58 acres are still there. Protected farmland, locked gate, quiet. But inside Willow Creek Estates, something else changed. Board meetings now include financial transparency. Votes are discussed openly. Violation notices require documented justification. No more historical assumptions. No more emotional enforcement. Just rules. Clear ones. With boundaries. Karen lost it when I bought 58 acres outside her HOA. But she didn't lose because of the land. She lost because the illusion collapsed. And once illusion disappears, control never comes back.